Good evening, good vok, Shavua Tov. Great to be learning with you on a Saturday night. Let's light up the darkness. Summer solstice, pretty much the latest Shabbos of the year. Tie maybe with next week. As always, I'm in awe. The people tuning in from the East Coast, like Sharon in New Jersey, Shandora in the Bronx, Bella in Florida. Amazing, Yashikach. Also welcome Joe in the Inland Empire. Ella says Shalom Chaim in Florida. Well done. Amazing. Very short daf. I'm sure you won't be disappointed to hear. Quickly, tomorrow, special schedule, going to be noon Pacific, like the Friday schedule, because there's an encore screening of our movie Guns and Moses that conflicts with the regular time for Sunday. So tomorrow, Sunday, noon Pacific, and I'll put a reminder of that on the Facebook page. Our daf tonight is page 113, Kuf. What is that? Why is that so weird? Kuf Yod Gimel. My eyes are playing tricks on me. Kuf Yod Gimel, page 113. We are in chapter 9, and tonight opening Mishna number 12 here in chapter 9. The Mishna says, with regard to one who lends money to another, and the debtor fails to repay it at the end of the term of the loan, the creditor may take collateral from him to ensure payment only by means of an agent of the court and not of his own accord. So that's basically going to be what we're talking about all evening. Right, so first of all, when a Jew lends money to another Jew, you can't take interest. So already, right, the borrower is receiving a big favor. He's just getting an interest-free loan from the lender. He certainly has an obligation to pay it back. And then if he doesn't pay back, now usually when the loan is made, the collateral is agreed upon at the time of the loan. But that didn't happen. The money was lended, and then the borrower doesn't repay. So can the lender take collateral at that time to try to force the hand of the borrower to finally pay back his loan? Well, he can't just seize something by himself. He has to go to court and say, hey, this guy borrowed money from me. He's not paying back. And then the court steps in and can seize collateral from the borrower to try to push him to pay back the loan. So the court can do it. The lender can't. And he, the lender, may not enter the debtor's house to take his collateral, as it is stated. This is a verse from Deuteronomy, chapter 24, verses 10 and 11. When you lend your neighbor any manner of loan, you shall not go into his house to take his collateral. You shall stand outside, and the man to whom you lend shall bring forth the collateral to you outside. If the debtor had two utensils of the same kind, the creditor takes one and leaves the other one in the debtor's possession. And in addition, the creditor must return a pillow at night, as the debtor requires it for sleeping, and a plow, which is needed for his daytime work. He must be returned by day. If the debtor died, he is not required to return it to the debtor's heirs. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says even to the debtor himself, he needs to return the collateral each day only for 30 days. Once 30 days have passed, onward after that, the creditor can sell the collateral in court with the proceeds going toward repayment of the debt. Now the Gemara. Shmuel says, an agent of the court who was granted permission to appropriate items from a debtor up to the sum of the loan may seize these items from him in the marketplace, but is not permitted to enter the debtor's house and take collateral. The Gemara asks, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah that one who lends money to another may take collateral from him only by means of an agent of the court? which proves by inference that when it is taken by means of an agent of the court, the agent of the court may enter the debtor's house and take the collateral. And the Gemara responds, Shmuel could have said to you, say that the Mishnah meant like this: he may seize it forcibly from him only by means of an agent of the court, by force through an agent of the court. But if the guy hands it over, he can take it. And the Gemara adds, so too it is reasonable that this is correct, as the latter clause of the Mishnah teaches, and he may not enter the debtor's house to take his collateral. So who is the Tana of our Mishnah referring to here? If we say it is referring to the creditor, well, this clause is not needed, as this law can be concluded from the first clause of the Mishnah, which states that a creditor has no right to take collateral himself. Rather, is it not referring to the court agent? So accordingly, this teaches that even an agent of the court may not enter the debtor's house to take the collateral. But the Gemara refutes this claim. If the argument to understand the Mishnah in that manner is due to that reason, but then there is no conclusive argument here, as it is possible that this is what the Mishnah was saying. One who lends money to another may take collateral from him by entering the debtor's house only by means of an agent of the court, which proves by inference that it is permitted to take collateral by entering the debtor's house by means of an agent of the court. So the agent can enter. So one can then infer, but as for the creditor himself, he may not even seize collateral outside the debtor's house. And this is a rabbinic decree so that he should not enter the debtor's house to take his collateral. Right? It's literally a fence around the halacha. If he's not allowed to enter the house to take collateral, the rabbis decree that he can't even take it from outside the guy's house. Is that what he said? Right? So in other words, it's a little bit ambiguous. Who can do what? Right? There is a lender. He's not getting paid back. There is collateral, and collateral may be taken. But who can do it, and from where can he do it? Right? So we said he can't take it by force. Only an agent of the court can do that. Can the agent of the court enter the house to take it, or can he only take from outside? If only the agent of the court can enter the house, can the lender himself take from outside of the house, or is that not even permitted? We're not sure yet. So Rav Yosef raises an objection to Shmuel's statement from a Baraisa. The Torah states, he may not take the lower or upper millstone as collateral, meaning from a person who makes his living by grinding grain into flour, if you take the upper or lower millstone as collateral, okay, you've definitely made your point, right? And that guy's going to be desperate to pay you back, but how's he going to earn money to pay you back? You've just taken the means of his livelihood. So the Torah is explicit on this. You can't take the lower or upper millstone as collateral. But it may be inferred that other items may be taken as collateral. So similarly, it states you may not take a widow's garment as collateral, but clothing that belongs to other people who are not widows, you may take as collateral. And the Gemara analyzes these statements. Who is permitted to do so? If we say that the creditor may take these items, well, that cannot be. As it is written, you shall not go into his house to take his collateral. So rather, is it not referring to the agent of the court, which indicates that the agent of the court may enter the debtor's house and take collateral, although the Torah places limits on which items the agent of the court can take. So Rav Papa, the son of Rav Nachman, interpreted the Baraisa before Rav Yosef, and some say it was Rav Papa, the son of Rav Yosef, who interpreted the Baraisa before Rav Yosef. Actually, it is referring to a creditor, and the Torah's additional prohibition against appropriating certain items is given so that he will violate two prohibitions for this action. Right? We've already seen this several times, that the court will add additional prohibitions just so that if you take the same action, you will have violated two prohibitions as a strong incentive. Right? The Torah has essentially repeated itself by making you guilty of two different provisions, two different prohibitions. If you take the same action, the Torah is telling you, don't do that. If you do that, you're going to be guilty of two transgressions. so that he will violate two prohibitions for this action. So, for example, if he took the lower or upper millstone, he would violate both the command, you shall not go into his house, as well as the more specific prohibition, don't take the lower or upper millstone. Now, the Gemara suggests coming here a different baraisa that contradicts Shmuel. From the implication of that which is stated, you shall stand outside. Do I not know that? And the man whom you lend shall bring forth outside. If he's going to give you collateral, he has to hand it to you outside his house. You can't go in. So, but it says that also in the Torah. So rather, why must the verse state the inclusive phrase, and the man to whom you lend shall bring forth outside? This serves to include the agent of the court. And the Gemara comments, what? Is it not that the agent of the court has the same status as the debtor himself, indicating that just as the debtor may enter his own house at any time, the court agent may do likewise? And the Gemara responds, no. The agent of the court is considered like the creditor, who must wait outside for the debtor to deliver his collateral. So are we saying then that the agent of the court, who is empowered to seize collateral, nevertheless may not enter the house of the debtor to make that seizure? So the Gemara tries again. Come in here that which the sages taught. The verse states, if you take collateral, if you take as collateral your neighbor's garment, you shall restore it to him until the sun goes down. You're not going to make him walk around naked because you're taking his clothing as collateral. It's a poignant reminder that, the people in the ancient world, average people, certainly poor people, would look at a closet, of any average or even a poor person in the modern world, and their jaw would drop. They just couldn't believe you have a drawer full of shirts and pants and hangers and dresses. It's just not conceivable that people have so many garments, right? They just had the one garment, some people. Now, the verse is speaking of an agent of the court. Do you say that the verse is speaking of an agent of the court? Or perhaps it is referring only to the creditor. So when it says, you shall not go into his house to take his collateral, the case of a creditor is thereby stated. How then do I realize the meaning of the verse, if you take as collateral your neighbor's garment? This verse is speaking of an agent of the court. So this indicates that an agent of the court has permission to take collateral. And the Gemara responds, this issue is a dispute between Tanaim, the sages of the Mishna. As it is taught in a baraisa, an agent of the court who comes to take collateral from a debtor may not enter his house to take the collateral from him. Rather, the agent stands outside, and the other one, i.e. the debtor, brings out the collateral to him. As it is stated, you shall stand outside, and the man to whom you lend shall bring forth the collateral. So according to this Tana, the agent of the court has the same status as the creditor. And it is taught in a different baraisa, a creditor who comes to take collateral from the debtor may not enter his house to take his collateral. Rather, he stands outside. And the other, i.e. the debtor, enters and brings out the collateral to him. As it is stated, you shall stand outside, and the man to whom you lend shall bring forth the collateral. But as for an agent of the court who comes to take collateral from the debtor, this agent may enter the house of the debtor and take his collateral. So the baraisa continues, the agent of the court may not take as collateral from the debtor items that people use in the preparation of food, as the debtor needs such items. And the Torah explicitly forbade their removal. And the agent gives, i.e. leaves behind, a bed, a second bed, blankets, and the agent will leave behind a bed and a second bed and blankets for a wealthy person, a bed, a second bed, a mat for a poor person. These items are left for the debtor himself, but not for his wife and not for his sons or for his daughters, as the Torah did not obligate the creditor to care for the debtor's family. Now the Tana adds, in the manner that arrangements are made for a debtor to be left with certain necessary utensils, so arrangements are made for one obligated to give money to the temple treasury resulting from a vow in the category of valuations. If one vowed to give a certain valuation to the sanctuary as specified in the Torah in Leviticus 27, but he does not have sufficient money to pay that sum immediately, a similar arrangement is made for him. And the Gemara is puzzled by this last clause. Isn't it the opposite? The primary discussion of arrangements is stated in the Torah with regard to valuations, from which the law of other debts is derived. So rather say that in the manner that arrangements are made for valuations as explained by the Torah, so arrangements are made for a debtor. In other words, if you pledge to give a certain amount of money to the temple treasury when the temple is standing in Jerusalem, and then you can't fulfill your pledge, so the temple treasurer can come and take collateral until you make good on your pledge. No one forced you to make that pledge, but having made it, the temple treasurer is actually helping you out by forcing your hand and making sure that you don't carry this unfulfilled pledge to the temple around on your conscience, as it were. And in the manner that collateral arrangements were made with respect to these unfulfilled pledges to the temple, the same laws were extended to how collateral was handled in the realm of private debts. That's what we just heard. Now, did we resolve, who can go into a house and who cannot? Right now, we're going to be just talking about what kinds of collateral can be taken. So I'll just mention what is the halacha. Going back to the halacha, just as it was listed here in the Koran version of the Talmud next to the Mishnah, where the law ended up. A creditor who wishes to take collateral from the debtor's property after the loan was granted may not do so himself, and if he does, he violates a Torah prohibition. According to the Rima, even if the creditor wishes to enter the debtor's house to take an inventory of the debtor's property, the court does not grant such a request. Instead, the court sends its own agent, who, like the creditor, may not enter the debtor's house. The agent of the court may take from the debtor any item that he finds outside the debtor's house, even if the agent has to use force. After the agent takes an item, he delivers it to the creditor. So that's where that ended up. Now, the master said above that when you're talking about what kinds of collateral are taken, this is what he doesn't take because he leaves it with the debtor. He gives a bed, a second bed, and blankets for a wealthy person. And for a poor person, he would leave behind a bed, a second bed, and a mat. So the Gemara asks, for whom is this extra bed? If we say it is for his wife, for his sons, or for his daughters, didn't you expressly say that these items are left for him, but not for his wife, for his sons, or for his daughters? So rather, both this bed and that bed are for him. Now the Gemara asks, why does the debtor need two beds when one should suffice for all his needs? Why does he need two beds? Because we're thinking like, modernites, like people in modernity of what a bed is. This is not how they viewed beds back then. So the Gemara answers, one is for him to eat on it, and the other one is for him to sleep on it. Right? So one is used like a table because it was sitting on the floor anyway, and the other is used for sleeping. So still, why does he need two? And this is in accordance with the opinion of Shmuel. As Shmuel, who was a doctor by profession, that was like a great little, we've read about Shmuel's opinion so many times, and very often he was talking about health-related matters, and I guess I didn't know or I forgot that Shmuel was a doctor by profession. So Shmuel said, with regard to all items that cause illness, I know their cure, except for these three. He doesn't know how to cure these conditions. One who eats a bitter date, known as an ahina, on an empty stomach, that's going to cause you stomach problems. He doesn't know how to cure it. One who girds a wet linen belt around his loins, i.e., if you put on wet underwear, you're responsible for your own illness that will follow. And one who eats bread and does not walk 4 cubits afterward. Don't eat in bed, right? Once you eat a meal, so if you ate bread, you ate a meal, you better get up and walk afterwards. Now, you only have to walk a few steps. Honestly, 4 cubits is like 2 steps. Better, of course, if you take a walk around the block, known as the digestif. Very good for your digestion to take a walk around the block. But if you literally eat and then don't move, that is very bad for your health, according to Shmuel. Now, a Tana, and so that's why you need two beds, so that you can eat on one and then get up and walk to the other. Health-related matter. A Tana taught a Baraisa before Rav Nachman, in the manner in which arrangements are made for valuations, right? Valuations meaning this is a type of pledge that you would make to the temple. We learned about these before, known as Arachin vows. Right, so there's a certain amount of money associated with people of different ages, and if you pledge your value, then that's just a form of ascribing a number to the amount of your pledge that you're going to give to the temple. So in the manner in which arrangements are made for valuations, so arrangements are made for the debtor. In other words, if you don't pay your pledge to the temple, they can take collateral from you, and that's how we learn out what can be taken for collateral in the realm of private debts. So Rav Nachman said to him, now that it states in the Mishna that we sell his collateral, do we arrange for him to keep part of it? And the Gemara asks, and do we sell it? But didn't we learn in the Mishnah that he returns a pillow at night and a plow by day, which demonstrates that such items are not sold? And the Gemara answers, the Tana taught the Baraisa before him in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. And this is what Rav Nachman was saying to him. Now, since, according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, we sell the collateral, do we make arrangements for him to keep it? As we learned in the Mishnah, that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, even to the debtor himself, he needs to return the collateral each day only until 30 days have passed. And after that, the creditor can sell the collateral in court with the proceeds going toward payment of the debt. And the Gemara asks, and from where is it known that when Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said that he sells the collateral, he was saying that there may be a complete sale? Perhaps this is what he is saying. Until 30 days, the creditor returns it to the debtor, as is. From that point onward, the creditor returns to him that which is fit for him, and we sell what is not fit for him. So, of course, this raises the question, what is fit for him? Right? Are we saying that, if somebody is living in luxury, then he has much more than his basic necessities, and therefore we will sell, stuff that we would consider luxury items to pay off his debt, and he can keep that which is we consider basic necessities, right? That's what's being asked. And the Gemara rejects this suggestion. If it enters your mind that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel maintains this reasoning, well, then there is nothing that is unfit for him. As Abaye said, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Kiva all hold that all Israel are the children of kings. In other words, a Jew is never deemed unfit to use a certain item, even if it is a luxury item. So the Gemara cites the cases in which the Tanaim apply the above principle. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel applies this principle, as we learned in a Mishnah, in Tractate Shabbos 126b. One may not move either raw arum, which is a type of plant, or raw mustard on Shabbos, as these are unfit for consumption when they are raw. And therefore they are muksa, right? So like a hammer, which is a tool that has no legitimate use on Shabbos, so you don't touch it, right? Because it's a tool that is used for work, and work is prohibited on Shabbos, so not only do we not use the hammer, but we don't even touch the hammer. That's the principle of muktzah, something that is set aside because it doesn't have a permitted use on Shabbos, so we don't touch it at all, right? So these foods, which can't be eaten in their raw state, which would require cooking, since cooking is prohibited on Shabbos, we say that these foods are muktzah. They are set aside. We don't touch them at all. Now, in the case of arum, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel permits moving it because it is considered food for ravens, which wealthy Jews would breed for purposes of ornamentation and amusement. That's pretty interesting, right? They were keeping ravens as pets. Arum was considered food for ravens. Only rich people had these ravens as pets. So arum would be considered muktzah for people that don't have ravens, but for people who have ravens or could have ravens, it's not considered muktzah. As Rabban Shimon Gamliel permits all people to carry arum, not only the rich, it is evident that he maintains that all Jews are considered wealthy in this regard, right? So Jews may not all have money, and many don't. There's many poor Jews in the world, but they are all considered quote unquote nobility, right? The children of kings, because we're all descended from, some of the noblest people of all time: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Where am I? Now, Rabbi Shimon applies this principle as we learned in a Mishnah, Tractate Shabbos 111a. Princes, right? Princes, I mean like a prince, the son of a king, princes may smear rose oil on their wounds on Shabbos, even though most people use this oil for medicinal purposes. In other words, rose oil is very expensive, so poor people would only use it when they needed it as medicine. Rich people would use it as an ointment, as an anointment, something that was just pleasant to spread on their bodies. So medication, unless it's a life or death thing, we don't take medication on Shabbos. There's definitely exceptions to that. If you're wondering about that, you should talk with your rabbi. First of all, if it's life or death, all restrictions go out the window. Of course, you take any kind of medication. With respect to medications that need to be taken every day, there's a lot of nuances to that question. But the reason that generally speaking, medication is not permitted on Shabbos is because in ancient times, most medications required grinding. And grinding is not permitted on Shabbos, right? So if it's not vital, emergency type of situation, then you don't take it. So that's why they're saying that somebody who would be using this rose oil as medication, he doesn't use it on Shabbos. But if he's using it just as a luxury item, he can use it. That's a distinction between the wealthy and the not so wealthy. So that's why they're saying that princes may smear rose oil on their wounds on Shabbos, even though most people use this oil for medicinal purposes, and healing oneself using oil is prohibited on Shabbos. And the reason is that it is the usual manner of princes to smear rose oil on themselves for pleasure during the week. And Rabbi Shimon says all of the Jewish people are princes, and it is permitted for them to smear rose oil on themselves on Shabbos. So here's where the halacha is on that. This is how it came out. One who feels pain in his loins may not smear himself on Shabbos with oil and vinegar together, as this is a medicinal balm. But he may smear himself with oil alone, as this is practiced even by people who are not sick. And the Rima adds that if the custom in a particular location is that only those who are ill smear themselves with oil on Shabbos, then it is prohibited for one to do so. One may not smear oneself with rose oil, as this is clearly performed for curative purposes, unless it is commonly done in that location. And this ruling is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon that we just read. Now, Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Kiva also hold this opinion, as it is taught in a Baraisa. If creditors were claiming 1,000 dinars from someone, and he was wearing a cloak known as an itztela that was worth 10,000 dinars. Now, this is, a pretty hyperbolic case that they're talking about, because we've read many times, right, that the dowry of a woman could be 200 dinars or 100 dinars. The kasuba payment is 200 dinars. 400 dinars is a huge amount of money. Average people would think 400 dinars is a lot of money. And now we're talking about somebody has a garment, right, a cloak that is worth 10,000 dinars. Okay, so this is some kind of like Elvis cape studded with diamonds type of situation. So creditors were claiming 1,000 dinars from someone, and he was wearing a cloak worth 10,000 dinars. So the court strips it from him and sells it for his debt and dresses him in a cloak that is appropriate for him, as one who is in debt does not have the right to withhold payment while possessing such an expensive garment. And it was taught in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, and it was similarly taught in the name of Rabbi Kiva. All of the Jewish people are fit for that cloak. One's clothing is not sold to pay a debt, and since all Jews are worthy of wearing the finest garments, this halacha applies to an expansive cloak as well. Now, this is not a teaching about entitlement, right? But it is a nice reminder that if you're a Jew, so often we get so stressed out, so anxious, especially in dangerous times like this, or especially when we're having personal troubles and, we're slipping, we can't get it together, we have a failure at this or a failure at that, and we start to get down on ourselves. We're all the descendants of kings. We are all princes and princesses. And you should have confidence. And if you're down today, it doesn't mean you're going to stay down. You're going to cry out to God. You're going to get it together and you're going to, make progress. And eventually the wheel will come around and you'll be back, where you'd like to be. Have faith. Have faith. Don't let yourself get down, right? You are a descendant of kings and queens. The Gemara returns to the issue at hand. And with regard to what entered our minds initially, that according to the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the creditor returns to him that which is fit for him, and we sell that which is not fit for him, there is still a difficulty, as the examples given in the Mishnah are bedding and a plow. So granted, this is understandable with regard to a pillow or a cushion, as it can mean that the court sells these items only if the difference in cost between the ones he has and less expensive ones that are also fit for him suffices to repay the debt. But for what is a plow fit? In other words, how can there be a difference in price? In this case, a plow is a plow. So Rava bar Rabba said this is referring to a silver plow, which is an ornament and not used for work. I am very close to done. Questions or comments, please get them in now. Rav Chaga objects to this entire opinion concerning the arrangement made for a debtor. Let the creditor say to the debtor, your needs are not cast upon me. In other words, why should I, who lent you money, make allowances for your livelihood? And Abaye said to him, indeed, the debtor's needs are cast upon him, because it is stated in connection with the same issue of returning the collateral, and it shall be righteousness to you. Deuteronomy 24:13. Which indicates that there is an obligation for the creditor to act toward the debtor with righteousness. And that's how far we're going to go. Reminder, tomorrow, Sunday, class at special time, noon Pacific, because we have an encore screening of our film in the LA Jewish Film Festival. If you're in LA, you can go to the lajfilmfest.org. And get tickets. That's going to be at the Lemley Town Center 5 in Encino at 4 o'clock. And for that reason, we're going to be having class tomorrow at noon Pacific time, not the regular time of 6 p.m. Good vok, Shavua Tov. Have a great week.